Welcome to State of Wellbeing, a podcast from South Dakota State University. The State of Wellbeing is a holistic well-being podcast with the goal of supporting the campus community as we strive to be a growing, high-performing, and healthy university.
Hi, I'm Shari Landmark, and I'm the Chief Wellness Officer at South Dakota State University. And today we are talking about belonging and homesickness at the State of Wellbeing podcast, and really talking about how students as well as faculty and staff really belong here at SDSU. And I'm excited to have some of our counselors from the Student Health Clinic here to join us today to talk a little bit about this topic. So I will let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Garr, and I'm one of the counselors here on campus.
My name is Julia Walker, and I'm another one of the counselors here on campus.
Could you tell me a little bit about your services and where we could find you on campus?
Yes, absolutely. So the services that we have are obviously counseling, and from there it's a walk-in. So students would walk into the counseling center, they'd say they want to meet with a counselor, and from there they'd fill out a little bit of paperwork, and a counselor would be out to the lobby to grab them, hopefully within 30 minutes. That's been our track record so far. And in a meeting with that counselor, they'd be able to talk about what issues or concerns that they have. The counselor would offer the different methods of support that we have at the counseling center, as well as other resources that are on campus that are applicable to that student. And that student leaves with an individualized plan for care and next steps, whether that be individual counseling, attending a group, going to a program on campus, or just a couple of resources that the student can review on their own. Autumn, will you tell us where to find them?
Yeah, so if anyone is interested in coming over and utilizing our services as a student, just come over to Miller Wellness Center. We are in the south side of the building. Come on in, and there's a friendly face that'll greet you and help you get started.
So there used to be this big rumor that there was this huge wait line and I can never get in to see a counselor. Is that true?
Not anymore. When we switched to step care, we really did meet the students where they're at. And so students have the ability to gain whatever access to care they need in the moment, where they don't have to have services set up at the beginning of the year to be able to access something sometime during that year. So I'm glad to say for the last couple school years, we have not had any form of a wait list.
That is really awesome. That just to be able to get those students in and get them the resources that they need as soon as they can. That's awesome. Well, let's kind of move on and get into the podcast, right? Why are we here? So really kind of understanding the student experience. So from your perspective, what does belonging look like for college students today? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So when I think about belonging, I think about Brene Brown's research. She did research on perfection, belonging, being a leader, and she also did research into all these different feelings and what they mean. And belonging was one of the feelings that they talked about in the book. So I actually had a quote from her that I wanted to share. With belonging, any discussion on belonging has to start with acknowledging that love and belonging are irreducible things for all people. In absence of love and belonging, there is always suffering. So we know that on a college campus, finding friends, finding people to talk to, that is like the first thing that I think students worry about, and the first thing that students try to do. I know when I was a student, I was like, I haven't even met my roommate yet. What if I can't stand their voice was one of my worries. I know. I worry about weird things. But just knowing that at the base level of all things, like all of us are worried about belonging. In order to feel like we belong, we need to be able to know that love and belonging go hand in hand. And I also had a couple other quotes from Brene Brown. And she said, we have to belong to ourselves as much as we need to belong to others. Any belonging that asks us to betray ourselves is not true belonging. And that's one one of the things that students who come in kind of right off the bat, especially the first year, second year students, they're like, I don't know where to fit in. I don't know like where my people are. I just want to find my tribe. And that is a common thing. So there's some comfort in knowing that you're not the only one. But at the same time, knowing that we can't know ourselves as much. We need to belong to ourselves as much as we need to belong to others. And what that means, our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. And that's really hard to do when you're coming, like you're 18 years old, maybe younger, you're still literally a child. And, you know, we're already expecting students to know their major, what they want to do for the rest of their life, and have a really solid sense of their identity and who they are. And that's just really hard to do, you know, and that, not saying that, you know, students need to be experts on themselves at the age of 18. What I'm hoping to help students understand is that it takes time. We can't possibly know everything about ourselves at such a young age. And that changes as we go on. And our sense of belonging will change. The friends we make will change.
Yeah. So for those of, you know, if someone isn't, maybe a student isn't coming in to get help and recognizing themselves, how would maybe a friend, a roommate, a faculty staff member, maybe a boss, recognize when a student is struggling with homesickness or feeling disconnected?
I think, you know, I don't want to generalize too much, but it's usually the way that students carry themselves, and the context to that is important. So it's almost like a student feels more down or shut down, they're lethargic, they're uninterested, or maybe the opposite. They're super peppy, they're extroverted. And if that's out of character for the student, that's a sign to check in with them. And that's sort of that context I'm talking about. And this quote, also from Brene Brown, explains kind of what I mean. Our yearning for belonging is so hardwired that we often try to acquire it by any means possible, including trying to fit in and hustling for approval and acceptance. Not only are these efforts hollow substitutes for belonging, but they are the greatest barriers to belonging. I'll say that again. Not only are these efforts hollow substitutes for belonging, but they are the greatest barriers to belonging. When we work to fit in and be accepted, our belonging is tenuous. If we do or say something that's true to who we are, but outside of the rules and expectations of the group, we risk everything. So in that way, maybe you recognize a student is struggling when they're trying really hard to fit in and be liked, or they might be trying to find belonging in a way that's betraying who they are themselves.
I think, you know, in the classroom, I think it's really important that the faculty staff get to know the student. And so I challenge if you're out there listening to this podcast, is reach out to the students, you know, get to know them. So that's, I think, a really great way for them to feel like they belong as part of the university, and starting in that way that they have someone that really cares for them, and they're not just this, you know, sitting in Rotunda D when, you know, most of us, it's like, oh gosh, I feel like this little ant in here, but that they're actually someone. So great. Awesome. And yeah, I mean, it's okay to generalize some of that, but it is something that maybe people aren't aware just to look for, right? So thank you. What are some kind of those misconceptions maybe students have about that homesickness and not fitting in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those misconceptions. I think, well, there were a couple that I thought of. I think students sometimes feel that the issue with homesickness or feeling like you're not fitting in, they feel like they are the issue, when the issue is more so just not knowing who they are yet. Like, I just keep thinking of the analogy of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and it just won't work. You know, you just gotta find the right place for yourself. The difficult thing about that misconception, you know, it's you gotta be comfortable with that taking some time. You know, gotta live a little bit of life. Another misconception might be that homesickness ends at some point, or like, you know, after first semester, I don't get homesick anymore, but it can hit us at any point in life. I know I still get homesick. I'm 30. Sometimes I still feel disconnected. I grew up in Minnesota, so this isn't my hometown. But I would encourage students to dig a little bit deeper into that feeling and consider if it's something specific they miss or something that they're looking for. Sometimes we feel homesick because we experience something or we sense something that reminds us of home. Like, for example, I always get a little bit homesick when I smell the laundry detergent that my mom uses. And I'm like, sometimes I don't even like clock it or recognize it, but I'm just like, oh man, I gotta call my mom, you know?
For sure.
Another misconception is that like everyone experiences homesickness. Well, that's not the case. Some people don't. And both can be true. Like I still feel homesick, but I was also very content moving out of the house, and I'm content living on my own now.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think it just kind of depends. Everyone's different, and everyone kind of maybe hits those different points along the line. And we're not going to get into this today, but I think even that sense of belonging kind of can come into that imposter syndrome. And we actually are going to have a podcast coming up here in a few weeks on that. So watch out for that. And we're excited to have that coming up here soon. All right, so our next little section here is just kind of some insights and support strategies. So Autumn, we're going to kind of switch over to you. So can you share with us how you can help students reframe maybe some homesickness as a normal part of the transition into college life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like Julia had mentioned, they are younger individuals, young adults. We have probably lived with either guardians or parents, and that's what we knew, and whatever values that they put into us is really where that was. And so when we get out on our own, we're having to experience the world on our own for the first time. And it can take us years or even up to a decade or more for us to truly feel comfortable with who we are. And so that homesickness and stuff really does play a big part into any transitions, especially all of the ones that we have as a young adult in college, or even if you're a non-traditional student too. College is a big thing to do, and homesickness isn't necessarily I miss my home that I grew up in. It might be I miss the people I was around. I miss these certain memories, or I miss being able to just have fun, have carefree moments. And so homesickness can look different for everyone. So I think it's really just knowing it's normal to some extent to have homesickness. When it starts to impact your daily living, that might be when, hey, I need some help, whether it's friends, family, or coming in and seeing a professional. That might look a little different, but I think it's really important for us to recognize and know it's okay to sit with homesickness. It means we care about something.
So you talked about coming in for help. So if a student is struggling with this and they come in, what are some strategies that you may help them with to build a sense of belonging on campus?
Yeah, so with the new step care model that we're utilizing and just kind of looking at people as whole people, we realize everyone's going to look a little different. So it's really finding what their values are. Where do they feel like they belonged previous to coming to college? How do we kind of hit those interests, those peak points that really do bring them a sense of either belonging, passion, care, whatever it may be. So a lot of it is really going to be figuring out where do you feel connected. Ideally, what would it look like for you to be connected on campus, and where do you feel comfortable going? And knowing that 18-year-old you that walked in on your first day of freshman year might look different than 22-year-old you that walks out the day you graduate, or the day that you decided, hey, I want to attend SDSU for a program. Might be completely different, and you may change your path 4 or 5 times, and that's perfectly okay. There's different times along there where we're really going to try to find what does it mean for us to belong. How do I know I'm getting what I need and I'm actually following what I love?
That is so true. And you think of all of the different opportunities through Jack's Club Hub and the clubs to get involved in. And as you said, you might get involved in something your first semester, and then you're like, this isn't part, or this, I'm not interested in this, and change. But there are so many ways to get involved. You're absolutely right. So if you had to give some advice to students who are hesitant, though, to like come in and seek some help from you or the other counselors that we have, or maybe feel ashamed of their homesickness and think, well, I'm 18, I shouldn't feel, that I shouldn't have this homesickness. How do you help them through this, or help them not feel hesitant to come in?
Yeah, so there's absolutely no shame in any time that you have to ask for help, whether it is like you're trying to figure out where exactly do I feel like I belong. Maybe it's I miss my hometown, I miss my parents, I miss the home cooked meals, whatever it may be. There's no shame in coming in and just either talking about it, because sometimes we just need someone to hear that we are missing those things, that we're trying to figure this stuff out. And sometimes we also just need someone who's not our friends and family to really hear what we're trying to navigate, because it's an unbiased opinion. It's not someone who's known us our whole life and has had visions maybe of how we should be as a young adult or an adult at any point in time of our life. And so really it's going to be a lot of like, just come in. We really do want to work with you and just talk through what's going on. And there's a lot of scary things that can happen throughout life. And so we can come in at any point in time, and it doesn't matter if you feel like it's a big thing or a small thing, you always are going to have that support, and it's completely okay to ask for it no matter what time of your life it is.
Great. Thank you. And yeah, we have a slew of awesome counselors in our student health clinics and counseling center. So do not be afraid to come on over. They are amazing. So talking about moving on to some practical tools and resources, and I know we've kind of dabbled into that already, Autumn had, but Julia, what are some campus resources? I guess I did too, right? What are some campus resources or programs that you'd recommend for students looking to connect and feel more at home?
Absolutely. So I believe, Shari, you mentioned the Jack's Club Hub, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the hub for all the Jack's clubs. And they'll put information on how to get involved in clubs. There's just a big old list of all the clubs available on campus, what they do, events that they're hosting, and that is a great place to get started. They normally have at least one person to contact, either through email or a phone call, if you're interested in attending any of those meetings. The other thing that I usually like to send students to is the Student Union's event page. There's also, I believe if you're just looking on the SDSU website, you can look up not academic calendar, but event calendar. And it'll show not just events that are happening in the Student Union, but around campus in general, anything that is happening within the Brookings community as well that students are welcome to go to. That's a great place. In general, if you're looking to connect and feel more at home, I would take a little bit of time to consider what makes home feel like home. For me, I know the thing that made me feel more at home was getting more connected with my local library. And now I'm a little probably too involved. I go there all the time. But looking at those things where it's like, well, it was this local mom and pop restaurant. It was being able to go for a walk in my neighborhood and know what to expect. So it can be any of those little things, just taking a little bit of time to consider what am I missing?
That is so true. I even walking around the track at the wellness center, it's like sometimes having like 10 grandparents, right? Because you have just this multi-generational facility, and you have just all these ages, and I don't know, it's great. But you had mentioned activities out in the community, but I do think that Brookings has such a great, as they say, a town and gown relationship where they really accept the university and the students into the Brookings community and the activities, as you mentioned. And there's just so many great things happening in the community, too, that the students can get involved in. I'm really glad you mentioned that. So So other things, how do you guide those students to find their people or build those meaningful relationships with those interests and hobbies?
Absolutely. So I already mentioned just taking some time on your own to think about what are the things that are missing, but also considering what makes a meaningful relationship. What are the qualities of a good friend for you? If you're looking to build community, not just with yourself, but with other people, what does that look like? And what are you able to do? Community is a buzzword, but it's also necessary. I think community and belonging are kind of synonymous with each other. And being able to know any given day, like, man, I got 3 tests this week. I won't be able to go to this club meeting that I want to go to, but maybe I can meet some of the other people in that club for lunch, kind of adapt it to what you need. But if you're having a little bit of trouble or just don't know where to start when it comes to getting to know yourself a little bit better, sometimes I'll have students come in and it's like, oh, well, what are you interested in? What are your hobbies? And they're like, I don't have any. They haven't had a chance to. They've been so busy. So just even helping you find different interests and hobbies. What are the things that you'd be excited to try? What's something you've always wanted to try? And if there isn't something interesting on campus that you find to be a part of,
Yeah,
start it.
It's so true. There's like the Taylor Swift Society or whatever. And I mean, chess club, I think there's a skydiving club. I mean, it's amazing. It's crazy. Yeah. If it's not there, you can make it. It's so true. That's so awesome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about any specific coping tools or exercises that you can share with students to maybe manage those feelings of loneliness or isolation if maybe they don't want to come into the counseling center, or maybe it's kind of between times that they can get in, work that with their schedule to get in to see one of the counselors.
Mm-hmm. So I would say the first thing to recognize is where the line is for you I'm an introvert. I enjoy my time alone. Where does that stop and where does loneliness start? A lot of the time I enjoy doing maybe a more solitary activity like reading or working on a craft. Like I will bring my crochet project to the coffee shop and just doing a solitary activity in public. Maybe people watch a little bit. And I know that kind of seems scary too, where you're just like, are people judging me? Are they going to think about why I'm doing this? Well, hey, it's a great conversation starter. Yeah. Maybe someone comes over and asks what you're working on. You're like, well, I'm working on a scarf for my grandma. And they're like, my grandma taught me how to crochet too, and it blossoms from there. So not being afraid to explore around campus, finding some places around campus that aren't your residence hall or maybe your apartment to just like hang out and spend a little bit of time. That can be a great thing to do as well.
And do you drink coffee when you go to the coffee shop?
I crochet so much faster when I drink my coffee.
Drink coffee. Okay. Well, I was just wondering. Some people like tea. I was just asking.
True.
So.
True.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I love coffee.
I'm definitely more of the tea drinker.
Okay.
But
You sure are. Autumn and sweet tea are best friends.
unsweet.
Not sweet tea. Iced tea.
Okay.
Sorry.
Moving on. All right. Moving on to really just supporting all students here on campus. We have so many students. This year, we don't have the census out. We don't know how many students are on campus, but rumor has it we're going to be right up there from last year, maybe the second highest class in SDSU history. So that is awesome. Having students from different backgrounds may face unique challenges in sense of belonging. But how do we be intentional about holistic well-being for all students, whatever that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. And Autumn, please jump in if there's anything I miss. But when it comes to specifically the jobs we do as counselors, we really do take it on a case-by-case basis. So we listen to that student's story. the things that they want in life, the things that they've experienced, and we really try to individualize support to best fit them and exactly what they need. And there's no better way of describing it besides in those general terms, but we really do look at each student that comes in our door as an individual with a backstory and hopes and dreams and humanity and dignity, and we want to do right by them. So we are intentional, just like you said. We're looking at their holistic well-being, all those different 8 dimensions that I know we've talked about in another podcast, all those different dimensions of well-being, and how can that student feel satisfied in those areas where they need to be.
Yeah, and we definitely also recognize, like, we can grow up in the same exact town, know each other for years, but there's certain aspects of our upbringing that were different values we hold. And so we really try to hear the students out for whatever they might be bringing in from before, currently, or even things that they're worried about in the future, and really try to meet them where they're at, try to figure out how has things been helpful before. You know, it maybe back home you had 4 or 5 coping skills that really worked well, and you're realizing it's not the same environment, they just don't work. And so really meeting them where they're at, learning as much as we can about them in those sessions or the one screening session, and really trying to tailor, how do we approach these things? How can we be creative with what's available to us? How do we utilize the things on campus or in the community to really meet their needs and, you know, give them the support that they're looking for in whatever capacity that might be?
It's awesome. Yeah, I think that's just so important to really just kind of listen. And I think the point that you just made, Autumn, is those coping skills before might work, but now in this environment, it might not work. And I think that's really key. That is really key. So what role do peer support and student-led initiatives play in helping students feel seen and valued? I know that we have a few groups that are being held in the counseling center here this fall, and maybe you two can talk a little bit about those as well.
Yeah, peer support really does drive our ability to know, like, our peers that are in the classes with us that maybe we're in band with or that we see daily in our hall. That really is the group of people that they are going through similar or the same type of experiences as we may be. They might see the struggles with the connection on our floor. They may see, like, hey, all of us are really stressed right now in this class. And so being able to connect with someone who's in the thick of it with you can sometimes be super therapeutic on its own. And knowing maybe that, hey, I'm connecting with a peer that was in this last semester or their freshman year and now they're a senior, and they really understand. I can learn from them. I can grow. I have that support. Peer support is really good with just being able to know that you're not alone with any of the struggles that come in college.
That is for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Autumn and I have had that conversation before where it feels like, you know, you come to college for the first time, you're making friends maybe a little more based off of how physically close they are to you. So people in your classes or people that live down the hall from you. And what ends up happening is, you know, that's not convenience in a bad way, but, you know, that's what we as humans want. We want to connect with people. We want to feel like we belong. And just knowing that even attending a peer-led or student-led club or group, that group might change as you get older and learn more about yourself, and that's totally normal and totally fine. As well as, I think we've both had students that have come in and be like, well, I feel bad. They're only like my class friend or like my residence hall friend. And so is that a bad thing? How are you going to become deeper friends with someone if you aren't friendly first? And, you know, it's wonderful to be able to know so many different people and ask them questions about their life, their backstories. And that's one of the great things about having so many student-led groups, is that we have a plethora of students that are just happy to get to know their peers and help mentor them if they're coming into college and they're heading out. It's just like this lovely, warm feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the residential life staff, the CAs, the RHEs, they do a really great job for those that are in the halls. And I know everyone on this listening today is not living in the res halls, but do a good job of trying to engage the students and get them involved to meet one another. And so I encourage you to engage in that, be part of those gatherings and get to know each other and just have some fun. Because I don't know, I think some of the best times of my college were, in the dorms and in the res halls. And so, of course, they were in class too. No. Oh, that's great. Well, let's kind of move on. We're kind of getting at the end of our show here today, but let's talk a little bit about empowerment and encouragement. So what's one small action a student could take to start feeling more connected?
Yeah, it may be just trying that something new, the thing that sparks your interest, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to actually take the time to do that. Or maybe you're joining a friend or a classmate to an activity that they're going to. But we realize that may seem small to some people, but that may seem huge to others. So an even smaller step that someone could take is even just to look into, what am I interested in? Is there anything on campus that really hits that spark? What would it look like if I could do that? Does it fit in my schedule? We'll look at conceptualizing what that means for you, and it doesn't mean you have to act on it right now, but it might just be knowing, where do I want to spend my time, my intentions, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. You can also scale it to different settings too. Like if you want to feel more connected in your residence hall, maybe have your door open for 15 minutes and say hello to anyone who walks by. Or if you're walking to class, maybe decide to, I know I'm someone who I like to listen to music all the time, but have your headphones off and smile at the people walking past you, saying, thank you, I hope you have a great day, or making small talk to the person making your coffee or handing you your Chick-fil-A. Any of those little things that just give a little bit of smile to someone's day. And we know psychologically that when we help other people feel better, we also feel better. So that would be a great way of connecting as well.
That is so true. So how do you help students recognize their own strengths? As we say, sometimes they don't even realize during those times of emotional vulnerability.
Yeah, so one of the questions that I really enjoy asking is, what's going well? What are you doing right?
That's awesome.
And if we need to break it down even more, we can say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I am optimal living, I am thriving, 1 being like I'm not doing it so hot, how are we feeling? Okay, great. You're feeling a 6. What's making it a 6? What's contributing to that? Why'd you say 6 and not 5? Just considering those little things, those little differences, and helping students recognize that you are capable. And I know it sounds cheesy. You've survived 100% of your hardest days.
Truth. So what about if you could share one message of encouragement to every student feeling homesick right now, what would it be?
Really take this time to figure out who you are, what you need, and what you want to do with yourself.
Yeah. Enjoy. I know it sounds counterintuitive. Enjoy being bored. There's nothing wrong with that. And it might seem scary that there are so many different opportunities, so many different people you can be, all the different traits that you can take on. And all you have to do is just pick one and get started. You can always change your path. Everything is figure outable.
For sure. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Autumn and Julia. This has been a really great podcast. I just really appreciate your insight and hopefully encourage those that do feel a little homesick or don't feel like they maybe belong. We've given you a few resources today to maybe find that path, or just know that you can come into the counseling center in the Miller Wellness Center and talk with one of these two or any of our other counselors that we have. Just walk in. We are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and no appointment is needed to see one of them. So just if you are listening and feel homesick, disconnected, or unsure where you belong, just know this: you are not alone and your feelings are valid.
College is a journey, and not just of academics, but of self-discovery, growth, and connection.
Belonging doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen with time, with courage, and with the right support.
You deserve to feel seen, valued, and at home here.
Absolutely. So reach out, lean in, and remember there are people who care, that want to walk alongside you, and who believe in your strength.
You belong here.
You belong here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of State of Wellbeing, a podcast from South Dakota State University. This podcast is brought to you by the Mental Wellbeing Team and SD State Health.